All right, well, Joe, welcome to the Mortgage Update with Mike and Joe. This is the April edition.
Eclipse episode.
The Eclipse episode. I can't say anything, so I'm going to put these on so that we look the same. But we're excited to be part of this. Obviously, this next week, this next Monday is a big day. This is going to be a total solar eclipse.
There's a lot of panic.
There's a lot of excitement. Panic. At the same time, I'm personally excited. I think it's going to be fun. I think it'll be cool. I actually, just as an FYI, I was in Nashville in 2017 when this happened at that time, and it was super cool. I was at a conference. They stopped the conference, and then we all went outside on our glasses. It was really neat to see just the city go from light to dark. All the lights came on like as if it was obviously nighttime, and then as the
kind of like a December afternoon here,
right? Exactly. Then as it moved, it became light again. But I will tell you, I know there's a lot of hype around this, but I'm confident in our local officials, and I think hopefully cool heads will prevail.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we can get 300 to 500 to almost double the population of Monroe County and city, right? That's a good thing. Have you thought about what you're going to do with your dog?
I'm probably just going to keep him inside the house.
They don't have dog glasses.
They didn't have dog.
That would have been
I'm going to keep the shades down. To make sure that the Amazon man has come to the door.
I mean, he freaks out when the Amazon guy comes. So if there's some clips, he'll probably freak out, but he'll be used to it, right?
Right, exactly. So, well, I think it's going to be great. Obviously, from what I've been told, this isn't going to happen in Rochester for another 120 years. So
yeah,
it's probably will be it for.
It'll be it. We better go out and look at it.
Yeah,
I think glasses on, take a look.
Yeah.
So we have a special guest on the episode today.
Yeah.
In honor of Community Bank.
We have
Flat Phil. So Flat Phil is the alter ego of our CEO, Phil Pecora. And in honor of Community Banking Month, we have a special series coming out on our social media channels where not only does Flat Phil go out to our clients, but actually Phil Pecora, our CEO, actually goes out and visits some of our clients, really gets to know them. And, when you think about us working with a community bank, it's an all-in effort. It's not just the commercial lender you work with. It's also our CEO that's going out to these businesses and learning about what they do, what their needs are, and helping them to really grow their businesses. And so for the entire month of April, we'll be putting out these series of not only Flat Phil, but Phil McCord, our CEO, going out to these businesses and visiting with them and talking with them and getting some feedback from some of our clients. And just one of the little things that as a community bank we do, and we're proud.
Right. I think this makes us a little different. And I think it's also, making certain that, in these, uncertain times that we're listening to our clients, listening to what their needs are, and really just trying to make certain that we're providing the most value we possibly can.
He does look like somebody I know, not just Phil. Wasn't there a bunk? Flat Stanley.
There was a Flat Stanley. I know
like
that.
His cousin.
I know that my boys, when they were in school, Flat, they had one.
Yeah.
I went over the country, so it's a pretty.
Take it on trips.
I did. I took it to actually.
What was the most weird place?
I actually took it to Hartford, Connecticut, for a sales meeting that I had there. So it was not quite as nice as this one.
Did it make appearance at Monroe Country Club?
It did not. I was not a member then at that time. So
don't forget to check out Flat Phil's adventures, all of them, on our social channels this month.
Well, Joe, let's shift gears. Let's talk about the market. Obviously, generally speaking, the real estate environment continues to be, very much the same. Very much a seller's market. Not a lot of listings.
Feels a lot like the movie Groundhog Day.
And it really does. But why don't you share with us what the actual numbers were, for March, and then certainly I can give just a little update on where rates are at and where they might be at.
Yeah, so Monroe County, Monroe and surrounding counties remains very hot.
Yeah.
We had, the range was 18% under ask up to 42% over ask, but the average was in Monroe itself, 17% over ask. In Monroe and surrounding, it's 15.5% over ask.
So that's 17%, Joe. Is that the highest percentage above ask it's been this year? And those
from an average perspective, yeah. And when we look at, the zip codes, the 14622 around Rendezvous area just remains to be one of those top zip codes where we had 6 transactions in there. One of them was actually FHA, but the average over ask was 30% over. And then, 14606 was 27% over. We had 7 in there. 14626, 25%. We had 6. So, what's crazy when I looked at the numbers, 5 out of the 100 homes that we did in Monroe and surrounding counties, only 5 of them were under ask. Wow. 5% less, just over 5% under ask. So everything's going over ask. Right. And then, conversely, when we go down the street to Onondaga and surrounding, it's completely different.
Perfect.
The range there is 13% under to 36% over, but 13 out of the 22, so 60% were actually under ask. Still not a lot.
Quite a contrast.
That's quite a contrast. Still not a lot of government business. Only 3 out of the 22 in Onondaga and surrounding were government. Where typically we have a higher government share there. But it continues to be a challenge. I know buyers. We talk about this all the time, right? We have a ton of demand, and just no supply. And I think the listing agents are working very hard to try and create supply. But it's the blood from a stone type of mentality, right? There's not a lot of people that right now are in a position where they want to sell their house, right? Got a 3% rate, kind of stuck. Got the stuck inventory at these low rates, locked up inventory, and that's a good segue into the rate conversation because we're not getting any relief there either.
Yeah, I know. We're seeing, obviously I've never in my 36 years have seen more daily conversation around what's the Federal Reserve going to do, what's happening with inflation. When do we think the Fed is going to cut? When are rates going to come down? When is it going to impact mortgage rates? And, the reality is that the economy from a national perspective, where they measure it based on GDP and other metrics that they use to kind of gauge the health of the economy, generally speaking, is in good shape. Unemployment is relatively low. So the Fed isn't feeling, compelled, to lower rates. But this week, the updated Fed speak is that, sometime in June, no guarantees that the Fed will, perhaps make their first cut. Now and then we continually hear that the Fed, as they should be, is data and what is the data telling us? And right now, inflation is not cooling. Tomorrow, there's a big news release in regards to, job creation. So that'll impact things.
Yeah, it was, I know Jerome Powell spoke yesterday and basically said that, it's too early to tell if what we saw, the numbers we saw in March were a bump in the road towards 2% inflation, or if it's a trend that we need to pay attention to. So I think, it's this every piece of news that comes out is another knee-jerk reaction to what people think the Fed is going to do.
Right. And I think, Joe, to that end, this is just another, again, this is a plug for one of our GRB products and programs. But again, longer term, over the next 12 to 24 months, the expectation, no guarantees, is that rates will moderate and come down. So as you know, that's why we rolled out the rate relief program. So when that takes place, when people want to refinance, we pay for a good chunk of their closing costs. But today, we still have our Rate Relief Plus program, which again allows that borrower for at least 12 months to have a 1% lower rate, a lower payment for 1 month. And we just encourage everybody that's listening to reach out to your GRB loan officer, learn more about it, and learn more really makes sense.
Yeah,
for your client.
There was, we've been so focused the news that's been coming out about the Rochester market and how hot it's been from the real estate perspective. And, we saw last month, there was an article published that Syracuse has actually been named the hottest rental market in the country, and reported by an apartment advisor. And so the cost of renting an apartment in Syracuse has climbed 23% over the last 2 years. And the median cost for an apartment went up from $1.22 per square foot at the beginning of 2022 to $1.50 per square foot today. Seems to be a lot of the supply and demand, but again, low inventory, no homes to buy. You got to do something, right? You got to live somewhere, so you go into rent, which is creating the demand issue on the rental side as well. So it's just it's an interesting dynamic that we're in right now because the supply and demand is just outweighing demand is outweighing supply.
Yeah. Kind of note to supplement, I think something that we'll probably talk about, and we probably could talk about this on our next podcast, is there has been a lot of initiatives discussed for New York State in regards to housing for both rental and for first-time home buyers. And this morning, I know there were some updates on some bills and some funding that has passed. So I think one of the things that we should do is to share with everybody kind of a summary of what those things are, where the state is really trying to attempt to do some things to try to help the situation out. And then you think about going back to your comments around the rents in Syracuse. We know that Micron, a big employer, will be coming into that community, which is going to be great. But obviously, these people are going to need places to live. So more to come.
Yeah, and I mean, conversely, on that same list, Rochester ranked number 11. Right, so we're not too far off from where they are as well. So, and again, it's a lot of that supply and demand issue. I mean, and when we think about the buying side, right? We were at a national conference a couple of weeks ago, and the average median home price in the country is $400,000, and then we're still get a house well below that in Rochester. Which is a good thing, but also is driving some of that demand, right? As we know, we're still below that threshold.
Right. So obviously, in the news, obviously,
right, we got a
news flash.
Not so much a news flash anymore, though,
right? A lot of news, obviously, regarding the no sell. Yep. What does that mean? What impact does that have on realtors? What impact does that have on lenders? What are lenders going to do in response to this? So to try to, net this out in a real straightforward way about kind of what hasn't changed and what has changed and what's the impact.
Yeah, I think, as with any news flash, right, any news article, right, there's always the instant rhetoric of, and what we saw with the settlement was commissions are going away. Mm-hmm. And just to be clear, commissions are not going away, right?
Right.
You're still going to pay a commission to sell your home. The amounts may change. But I think we're seeing is a lot of that is going to be negotiated in the contract. I'm going to submit an offer on a house, and we agree that the seller is going to pay the buyer's commission, or we agree that the buyer is going to pay the buyer's commission. Right? There's going to be a change into how things are done. I think when this all settles, that was part of the reason of the lawsuit was just more transparency of things. But I think to say that the commissions are just going away would be false, right? Like the 6% commissions are gone; they're gone. They're still going to be negotiated, and ultimately, I was talking to an agent about this earlier this week, and they said, hey, if somebody wants to submit an offer with my seller paying a 10% buyer's commission, what's the net number to my seller? Is it higher than my seller paid no commission or 3%? Right? So I think that's the shift that's going to happen: is what are those net numbers look like, right? And what's the impact to the seller of the home? And in reality is, when we look at it from our vantage point, right? If that's in the contract, it's no different than the seller or the buyer decided who's going to pay the transfer tax on the property.
Right.
So there's, things like that are already negotiated. And the good thing is that it's not considered, if it's negotiated through the contract, it's not considered a seller's concession, right? So you can still do a seller's concession on top of the seller paying the commissions, because that seller's concession doesn't count into the limits,
right?
Or that seller paying the commissions doesn't count into the limits of a seller's concession.
Right.
So, there's a lot more to come with it. I think, there's going to be, as the dust settles and the DOJ steps in, they could step in and say, hey, we need to do more. They could step in and say, this is good. We're okay with this. So, that's supposed to come in July, I believe, by the beginning of July. So, we'll know here in the coming months, and we'll continue to give our take on it. But I think, again, just the important thing is to know the details, right? And understand the details. And, from a buyer perspective, breaking this down or we have a new segment we're introducing called the buyer breakdown. Just try to show, okay, if there is a news flash, what does this mean to the buyer? Mm-hmm. And, from the buyer perspective, I think it's important to understand that buyers agents represent the buyer. And there I'm looking out for the buyer's interest. And there's so much more than just writing the offer on the home that the buyer's agent does, or so much more than just showing that the houses. I mean, we had a survey that we did at our last event that said, how many offers have you written for a buyer? I think the number was 85.
Right.
85 different offers that a buyer's agent wrote for a buyer.
And didn't get
accepted. Right. And so when we think about that and the importance of the buyer's agent, just because there's an option to, work directly with a listing agent to try not pay a buyer's agent commission, it's not always going to be in the buyer's best interest. And I think that's the angle that maybe wasn't really thought about so much in this lawsuit was, how does it impact the first time home buyers, right? If they're having to pay buyer's commissions out of pocket, but then how does it impact the buyers, and are their interests being best represented if they're under a dual representation? And I think that, the buyer's agents play such a crucial role today in the purchase of a home that it'd be, it wouldn't be smart. It wouldn't be wise to just dismiss and say, I'm not going to use a buyer's agent.
I think, in this environment, using a buyer's agent is really more important than ever. It's a thing that you can just go directly to the seller and think you can get your offer accepted. Frankly, I think it's foolish. I think that, when you think about the stats you just shared, how competitive it is, you want to be working with an agent that's going to represent you, that's going to work through the details of that contract. There's so many different nuances to it. And if you want to put yourself in the best possible position to get your offer accepted, and making certain that the contract is written that's into your best interest, using an agent to me is more important.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, and again, it's just that ability to write the offer in a way that it's going to get accepted.
Right.
And I think, nobody knows that better than the buyer's agents, because they're writing these offers on a day-to-day basis, that they understand how it is to navigate with the seller's agent, determine what's most important to the seller. Right. I mean, that's part of writing that offer, is understanding, what's their timeline? Do they need to be in the house a little bit longer? Are they looking for a quick close? Do they want to stay till school is out, right? What are those things that are important to the seller to help your offer stand out? And also the recommendation of who are the best lenders to work with, right? And just navigating, just diving in blind into the market with your eclipse glasses on, where you can't see anything, may not be the best approach or strategy. But there's more to come on that, and I think that it's just important to really understand everything that's going on when you read a news article and look at it from a different angle.
Yeah. So before we sign off, just to reinforce, what I assure that we'll do for everybody that's listening in is Joe and I will provide a summary of what's being worked on thus far within the state, what's moving forward, what's the impact of that in our communities, that we live in. But all that being said, we certainly encourage everybody that's taking time out of their day to listen to our podcast, to email us, to reach out, let us know those topics that you think are most important for us to discuss, debate, learn more about. Just be rest assured that here at GRB, as a local community bank, one of the largest purchase money lenders, we are continually trying to think of and work through strategies that are going to help realtors and their clients be more successful in this really competitive environment that we're in.
Yeah. And I mean, you should always have a landing page, grbbank.com/MJ.
Yes.
Use with Michael Jordan.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. We'll make sure that we say that over and over again.
Right. So, like and subscribe.
So,
need more followers, right? I think
yes, we do.
Another challenge.
We got to get up to like 1,000.
Yeah.
I think that's where we got to get. So, well, thank you everyone for listening in, and hope everybody has a great and a safe time for the solar.
Put your glasses on.
Put your glasses on. All right, everybody. We'll see ya. Bye.